Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, Optimized Traffic Monitoring with Siqura Cameras. My name is Connor, and I will be your moderator. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things to run through quickly. All your phone lines are muted, so if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat feature within the GoToWebinar toolbar. Presentation will last about 30 minutes or so, which will give us time for questions at the end. By attending today's webinar, you are eligible to earn TARP points through IMSA. For those of you who provided your IMSA number during the registration process, Western Systems will go ahead and handle that submission for you. And lastly, today's webinar will be made available for you to view anytime on demand. You'll get a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to do so. All right, with the housekeeping out of the way, I'm excited to introduce today's presenters, John Nagel, Western Systems, and John Sporney from Siqura. Guys, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Connor, and thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about how to optimize traffic monitoring with TKH Siqura cameras. I'm John Nagel. I'm the territory manager for Central and Southern California for Western Systems. And today I'm joined by John Sporney from TKH Siqura. We're both based in Southern California. And happy to kind of walk through some of these things with you guys. Today is essentially part two of our Siqura conversations that we've had. Part one, we were joined by Josef Infante, who walked us through some of the capabilities and features of the VMS software VDG Sense. So if anyone is interested in watching that all of our webinars are pre-recorded, as Connor mentioned, and can be found on our website. So today we're going to focus a bit more on some of the hardware elements, some of the ways that we can implement a successful deployment of IP cameras in the field. So again, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate John Sporney for joining us as well. We're going to have a bit more of a conversation feel of it today. So thanks for joining us, and let's just dive in. Now, I don't know if anyone else has pets out there, but a couple of weeks ago, this look I've been getting from our dog. This is Maddie. She's our 100-pound Norwegian Ridgeback Australian Sheepdog mix, and about a couple weeks ago she started giving us this side eye, especially me working from home, which again it's her home, and she's been kind of confused why I'm still here. So you know, while we're still sheltering in place, we're going to be continuing to do these webinars. We've got a lot of positive feedback, so we really appreciate that. So you know, until I can give Maddie her house back, we're going to keep continuing these webinars. Afterwards, we'll look forward to seeing everyone again out in the field. So looking forward to getting Maddie's house back and continuing the conversation. So just briefly on an update from Western Systems, our manufacturing has continued. We've been open this entire time. We were deemed essential by the state. We've been respecting social distancing, and we continue to turn out ITS solutions, and our cabinet manufacturing does continue. So very proud of that. Our technical support team is, of course, available, both pre and post sales. Our local team that is located in all the territories that we cover, from California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Alaska. We're all here to help from a technical side. From an account management side, even though we're grounded essentially and working remotely as best we can, we want to help out wherever we can when it comes to education, demo assistance, quoting, and other types of support. So again, we're here to assist you guys. You know, you guys are continuing to work, so we're continuing to support. Now, just touching on TKH Siqura, we've been a partner with them for well over 10 years. There's a lot of corporate or company personality similarities between our two companies that we work really well. I think a story that really illustrates that is we recently went to a head-to-head against a competitor in Northern California, where they were doing a side-by-side comparison of video quality of a TKH solution versus a competitor solution. And the customer was going through some issues, some headaches, and having some quality issues with the Siqura camera. This issue was brought up to our account manager, who handles Northern California. They looped in the right person from Siqura, who was able to assist within 12 hours from that issue being recognized. They were able to log in, change some settings, and clean up the video in a way that it was even better than the video of the competitor. So just kind of demonstrating customer support. You know, the Siqura system is very dynamic. It's very dynamic enough to fit into your infrastructure. But ultimately, you know, Western Systems, we're your one throat to choke, or as I prefer, one hand to shake. when it comes to any issues. If we can't resolve those issues, we know who can. And that, I think that's a great example of our Northern California rep, Jason Spencer, who did a great job of that. So in terms of looping in the right partners, want to throw it over to introduce John Sporney, who's going to touch just briefly on their solution, and we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth on our relationship.
Thank you, John. And we have another connection because John and I were the last two. Well, he's the last person I've eaten in a restaurant with because we had lunch the day before the shutdown. So he's the last person that I've eaten out with. So look forward to doing that again in the future. But for now, yeah. So I wanted to just briefly touch on who Siqura is. We are part of the TKH group, which is a company based in Houten, the Netherlands. Between the group is about 85 companies or so, and they go out and purchase companies that they feel are undervalued and then put them together in business units, and that's what Siqura is one of those business units. But total, we're $1.7 billion worth of revenue with about 6,000 employees in 25 countries. We started in 1930 as TKH. Telecom, which was based in Germantown, Maryland, which is an office we still have and manufacture in, was founded in 1972. In 2005, Telecom and NKF came together, and then it was acquired by the TKH group around 2011. And then in 2018 we changed the name to Siqura. So Siqura is actually a few different companies. If you go to the next slide. Next slide. Or is this? Oh, okay, a little bit of delay there. We're actually we are actually a video management company. We also have some other products that we key processors, access control, some security, not necessarily in the ITS market, but we do have other sister companies also in other segments like Park Assist, Commend, Tatile, which does tolling. But we're a group of companies, but we market ourselves as Siqura, but we're going to focus today just on what we offer in the ITS market. But I wanted to give you some background of who we are. Next slide, I guess.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, thanks, John. So just kind of jumping into it, just touching on the importance of video. Obviously there's a lot of safety concerns out on the roads, a lot of monitoring concerns, a lot of things that video really helps us with. In telling the whole story of what's going on out there and enabling us to make the right decisions. So, having those eyes on the intersection, those eyes on the road, can help us with a lot of the monitoring and improving some of the traffic flow situations that we have. Detectors might be out there already in place, but they only tell part of the story. Really, to get the real piece of it, video is a great sense of it. Anything you want to add, John, in terms of what's important, important implementation of video, or just in general the importance of video on intersections?
Well, there's many different ways that the video could be used. You can add analytics, and you can get some more situational awareness in the intersection. If there are incidents, you can do research. Traffic studies are very easily done with video. So there's many different ways, and we can kind of go into how we can accomplish that through the next bit here.
Very cool. Okay, now just touching on the the idea of the whole picture of the system. I like to think of this as an iceberg. Okay, so we've got our cameras out in the edge, out in the field. Those are what the public sees. Those are what we can see and feel, but they really don't paint the entire picture of what goes into a true camera solution or a successfully deployed camera solution. So obviously we've got the hardware, the technology that's going to be mounted in the intersections, but then if we peel that onion, or I guess the iceberg, peel the layer of the iceberg back, we got to consider the physical mounting. How are we going to put these up in the intersection? How are we going to get the most out of our cameras that are deployed in the field? Because if we've got a great network and we've got a great VMS and we've got interoperability, we've got all these other great things behind the scene, if we're not putting it out there in the real world at those intersections, maximizing their visibility, we're not getting the most out of our cameras. Would we love to have 16 cameras on an intersection? Maybe. But obviously we have to work with what we have and try to get the most out of each camera, whether that be from a fixed camera or a PTZ camera. So we'll touch on physical mounting a little bit later. Also key is to have a strong network, whether that be over fiber, cellular, or radio. Having this in place really enables you to make those steps to implement a PTZ. We worked with a city called Ellensburg, which is in central Washington. They're actually a pretty small town of roughly about 22 intersections, I believe. But they produce a lot of hay. So there's a lot of truck traffic that goes in and out of this city. We had conversation with them, and we learned that they already had a fiber network spread across their entire town, and had kind of had some hesitation about deploying a video solution. But once we kind of explained to them that a lot of the hard work had already been done by implementing that fiber network, adding a PTZ to those intersections, would be a fraction of the cost of the whole intersection, a fraction of that the overall headache of the intersection. So even though it was a small city, they had something in place. They had a network already in place, and were able to look at that and really realize that they could deploy a PTZ across a small city. So again, moral of the story, kind of a small town doing big things thanks to a network being in place. Another important part of the iceberg, once we've got that data and we've brought it back, where are we bringing it back to, and how are we managing it? So the who, what, where, when, how of that video is all about the video management system. So this would be, who has access to it, how they're accessing it, where they're accessing it, how long they have access to it, what type of retention we're talking about, and that's our VDG Sense, the VMS solution. That is very, very flexible and very compatible with a lot of different other pieces of hardware out in the field, which brings us into this idea of interoperability. Both interoperability of the hardware with the software, with VMS to other manufacturers, to VMS to other types of cameras, analog or digital. That's one piece of interoperability, but we also want to consider interoperability between agencies. This is a platform, this VMS is a platform that can be shared across different IT infrastructures, across different hardware. So it's also something to kind of keep in mind there. And then kind of I took the iceberg and tilted it on its side, so now we can see kind of illustrated in the real world, or at least an illustration of what that looks like. We've got our IP cameras, IP or analog cameras on the edge, connected to an encoder into a network switch, through the network and back to this VDG Sense right here, which essentially is the brain of the whole solution. Let's see if I can get my little laser pointer here. This VDG Sense, the brain of the solution, where we can take that data and either review it real time on a video wall. We can take it and put it into throw it into storage into a server, whether on-prem or in the cloud, if we need to access it at a different time. And then again, accessing, we can review that stored data to make those decisions, about improving traffic flow, or making those decisions about improving safety. So, I like to think of the VDG Sense, the VMS, as the brain of the whole picture, and the camera is essentially the eyeballs of that, which kind of brings me into, let's talk about those eyeballs now. So, John, if you don't mind kind of walking us through, what are some things to kind of look at when we're evaluating hardware? What are some features of cameras that can really be beneficial out in the field?
Yeah, and I want to add one thing to the last slide too, is that it doesn't have to be coming back to one video wall location. Many of the customers that we share between Western and Siqura are actually within a city. They'll have multiple agencies that are actually taking this information back and putting on a digital wall, such as the police department, fire department. So the ability with IP to have multiple streams off the eyeballs, you can actually then share that with other departments, and that can sometimes help in budgeting, that you can pull the money together from different departments and use one system that's intelligent and gives you situational awareness for different purposes.
Very cool. Awesome.
Get them ready to go next slide now.
Sure.
Yeah, so for the purposes of ITS, we tend to focus on a smaller group of cameras, but Siqura does have a wide variety of cameras that go into we do sell into different segments of the market. We have box cameras, PTZs, fixed dome fisheye cameras, bullet cameras. We also have industrial grade cameras that can be used in the marine oil and gas industry, as well as safe areas. But for this, we'll focus on some more specific hardware, but we do have a wide variety of cameras for any type of use in many different applications.
So we see a lot of this camera out there, the bubbleless PTZ. You know, a lot of people think of kind of the dome when they think of PTZ, not necessarily one without it. What are maybe some benefits of removing that dome with this from the PD910?
Well, one thing, domes require more maintenance than this type of camera, which sometimes people look at it and they don't think there's a protection on it, so it would be the opposite. But actually, this is a much more robust camera. It is IP66, so it's very durable. The benefit of not having a dome is that it is covered. You can see the lens on the front of the camera there. That is coated with a nanoglass type surface, so water, dirt, insects, whatever might come across it is not going to stick to it as easily as it would sometimes a dome. So that way you don't have to, oftentimes these cameras are mounted pretty high in an intersection or on or near an intersection or other places. They're pretty high to get a good field of view. So maintaining them, having to go up and clean them is time consuming and cost effective. So not having to do that and take it, this probably would take half as much or even sometimes further depending on the weather and other things in the area. You can probably requires half the maintenance. So that's one thing. Domes tend to, after a while, will cloud. Then they'll need to be replaced. This camera should not need that. There is also when you don't have the, especially in ITS, domes sometimes have a tendency to show this distortion when headlights hit it. So you don't have that problem with this camera as well. The other issue is that this will go up 20 times or 20 degrees above horizon, and you might see this that other cameras, dome cameras or bubble cameras can go over horizon, but you'll often find that when you get to horizon, it'll start to distort because that's where they start running into the ring around the thing. So you really can't get much higher than horizon with most bubble cameras. This camera also has a state-of-the-art PD servo feedback, which means that if it were to be struck by something, because it is exposed, so perhaps it could be near the wind. With the wind, a tree branch breaks off and it smacks against it. This is smart. It knows where it was. It'll go right back to the position it was when it was struck. So there's many advances. This is I think the future of PTZ, and we're real proud of this. And it's been in the field for about a year now for us, this particular model, and it's done very well.
Yeah, I can kind of attest to the bubble story. We had a customer in Northern Oregon that was having an issue with spiders actually spinning their webs over the dome, really affecting the quality of the camera. In Oregon, it gets pretty misty, so after a while, a lot of moisture would collect on the webs, and it really affected that image quality. And their techs really got tired of constantly traveling out to each location to manually clean the cameras. So ultimately they went to something like this. They went to a PD910, and since then they've been spider free in terms of that piece of it. But I also want to call out the 20 degree beyond horizon. I think that's got, obviously we've got more visibility by going 20 degrees past the horizon. But I think what that also enables us to do is help us with our installation, because we don't have to mount our cameras as high, because that 20 degrees is able to make up for some of that height. A lower camera installation means a lower pole, means less shaking, means better visibility. So you can kind of take that 20 degrees of tilt and extrapolate that into how it can help other things instead of just the amount you can see, but the ease of installation.
And I'd also add to that as well. Where it really comes in handy with the 20 degrees is if you were had this mounted at the bottom of a hillside and you needed to look up the hill, you wouldn't, with a bubble camera, you may have to put another camera further down the road to look up the hill. This would be able to do it with a single camera, so you can actually save money in installation that way as well. Or if you wanted to look up to an overpass, or from an intersection up to an overpass or something. So it does help possibly require less cameras in an installation and save you some money that way, and less cameras is easier to take care of as well, maintenance wise. So
now talking about the full product line, you guys also have we've got the dome-less, but also the dome. Can you walk us through this one and kind of when would you want a dome versus a non-dome?
You know, I prefer, if you were to ask me, if my opinion, I would push you towards the 910. I think it's a superior camera because it's newer. It's got 40 times zoom, where this just has 30. This, I guess, is just for the people out there that aren't willing to make the change to something new. We definitely have something for the more traditional mounting. And so we've produced dome cameras for longer than we've produced the domeless. So we just wanted to keep people that may not want to make that change for whatever reason. We give them an option to have the dome if that's what they prefer. It's a fine camera. It's just it wouldn't be my preference, but the customer, we give them the choice to have either form factor and for whatever need. There is sometimes where you may want, especially when I mentioned earlier that you might be sharing the stream with say the police department. You may want to, you can put a smoke dome on this type of camera, and it would make it, even if somebody was very close to the camera, they wouldn't be able to see which way the camera is pointed. The PD900 is very difficult once it's up on a pole to see which way. It's because it's just a round ball. But if you were to look very closely, you probably could see the lens. I mean, if you're driving by in a car, you probably wouldn't see it. But if you were sharing those, because sometimes during the day it's ITS, and then in the evenings the police may be looking into a park or something, they may want to have that extra bit of security as to people wouldn't know that they were following with the camera. So that's one of the uses where a dome is a superior performer in that regard.
Very cool. Yeah, makes sense. So those are kind of the PTZ options. There's obviously a number of fixed options, but one we wanted to call out was the 360IR-E. Could you tell us a bit more about this one, when this one would apply, and some of the features of this, and when you would want this over PTZ or in combination with the PTZ? How would you recommend kind of deploying these solutions?
Well, yeah, I mean, the PTZs and this type of camera really have the work in conjunction with you, though. In conjunction with each other, they complement each other's abilities. So a PTZ is very good at looking at something. Once you've determined that there's something that you want to see, a PTZ can really zoom in on it and give you a really detailed image of it. But if something happens behind where it's pointed, you're not going to see it. So where this type of camera comes in an intersection, it can see all directions, and it's a 12 megapixel. And I want to point out, there are other competitors that have similar cameras to this, but oftentimes they're using multi-sensors. This is a single sensor 12 megapixels. Some other competitors will use 4 3 megapixel sensors, and then they'll use software to put them back in. And seeing them side by side, I think this gives you a better image. But what you can do is that you put this in an intersection, and you'd be able to see all directions coming in. So then if you identified something that happened, then you take the PTZ and look at that thing. The other way of doing this would be putting in, 4 bullet cameras pointing at each direction in the intersection, but then you have 4 cameras. So that's more to manage, and it also can be more. It can be more cost because with most VMSs, in fact, I would almost say all, but I don't know every VMS out there, but the ones I've come in contact with charge per channel. So you'd end up paying for that type of application. You'd pay 4 channel licenses to a VMS. This just gives you 1 channel. You can actually go inside besides giving you all fields of view, you can actually go in this and do a virtual PTZ. So even with this camera, you could also go in and focus down on a specific part of the intersection or incident or whatever you want to do. You could actually go within that the view that you see here on the right-hand side of the screen. You can actually go in there and move around with that as well. It's a virtual. You're really not doing anything other than in software. But that's what this is for.
So almost like a digital PTZ. Nothing's physically moving, but you're still able to kind of warp or de-warp some of that image to make it as if you can zoom into a wide range of visibility. Huh.
Right, because it's 12 megapixels, you're going to really be able to get some detail too. So that's with the high density of the image, you're able to really zoom in, and it's pretty impressive in an intersection, for sure.
Cool. Very cool. Now, just kind of touching on what I'd spoken about a little earlier about the physical mounting of a camera in the world at the intersection of the road. Our Connor and our marketing team put this together. It's a good illustration of the whole solution, you know, at least in the field, the hardware that might go into putting a camera up on a mast arm out in the field. So right here, we've got our PD910, our tip of the iceberg, shown right here. We've got an L bracket and you know, this arm going off the mast head adapter on the bottom. These clamps are just here for the photo shoot that we put together. But this illustrates all the different part numbers that we've worked with in the past. We've worked with a lot of customers, and this is one that kind of is a common thread of how to deploy these and what it would look like in the real world. One of the challenges with PTZs is that you've got to mount them inverted, and by doing that, you're going to have to navigate, you know, a pole that's going to be somewhat near to that camera. And the closer the pole is to the camera and the wider the pole, the less visibility that you're going to get with the PTZ. So what we've been kind of working on is that trade-off, because if we put it too far away from that pole, or we make that pole too thin, then we're running into vibration issues, and we're running into, you know, visibility issues there. So, you know, we kind of found that happy medium and put together this bill of materials, this bundle, I guess you can call it, that brings together all these elements that have been proven already in the field. Right here, we've got an adapter. So if our mast arm is not perpendicular to the ground, or sorry, not parallel to the ground, our adapter will enable us to mount that pole perpendicular to make sure that we're getting a flat image coming out of that camera. And then also just the optional PoE injector right here. It will do 24 volt AC, but it can do PoE as well. Anything you want to add to this, John? I know this is kind of a nice illustration of the hardware world, but anything you want to add to this image?
No, this is you guys creating this mount has been, I think, is a big benefit to customers, and getting it up above the mast arm, where you can get a lot of, oftentimes I've seen mounts when it's on the side of a pole, there's a lot of there's a lot of interference from the view because the signal pole, the luminaire, and the actual signal itself gets in the way. Having it up on this really gives you a better field of view, and really makes this camera much more valuable in the intersection.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, do you see many PTZs mounted kind of the opposite way, inverted right way up, you know, almost like a observatory? Do you see a lot of those?
You can do this. I personally haven't. I mean, the camera can be flipped upside down, but the problem is then you'd only be able to see up and only 20 degrees down below this horizon. So it'd really be, I don't know the application where that would make sense. I haven't run across it in my career, but it's possible.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be mounted pretty low, right?
Yeah, we've seen applications where you can floor mount the 360 camera, and there's reasons for doing that. But for the PTZs, it's a software thing. It can flip, but you wouldn't want to put that piece of expensive equipment on the ground where people could get to it in an intersection. So it's got to stay up on the pole.
Okay. Yeah. Now, speaking of software, we talked about VMS, the video management system that Siqura has, the TKH Sense solution, which, you know, again, is in a previous webinar that we went over with Yosmin in great depth. But John, would you just mind running us through a couple of key hits of the software?
Yeah, sure. So you know, we are a ITS company. We do have some business in security, but we're not a security company per se. So this, I want to point out, is a video management system that was designed from the, you know, with ITS DNA from the beginning. So it was really designed for great use on video walls and the kind of uses that you find in ITS. So it's not something that was brought from the security market and, you know, tossed into here for you to use. It's fully customizable. It's very simple to use. It's simple in the way that it operates. It's very intuitive. You can almost, because there are many different people that are using it. So, you know, we want to keep training to a minimum, make it maybe simple to use. And it's simple even in the way we price it. I won't go into, you know, the exact pricing, but because Western can give you a quote if you're interested. But you know, we only charge a one-time fee for each server, so you get a site license, and then you pay for each channel that you have. And really, other than that, we don't charge extra for other things. There's no ongoing fees unless you want to buy software maintenance, but that's optional. So it's not like some of the competition I see out there where they'll charge you a bunch extra to be for the license to do video wall, or they charge you an ongoing fee each year. So that can sometimes be difficult on budgets. So we once you buy it, it's yours. That version of the software, you can use it forever without any extra fees. Or if you want, again, you can buy the upgrade plan and you get the latest and greatest releases as they become available. We support our own product, but we also support over 3,000 different partners through either native drivers or OnViv. We're OnViv compliant, so we do that. It's great with macros. We have the ability to use it with APIs, and it does, it's supported. You can also view this on your your smartphone, whether it be an Apple or what's the other one called? I'm forgetting. I'm an Apple guy.
iOS, yeah.
Android.
So what type of macros? What can you kind of go into? How we're gonna, the event-driven macros that can be put together for VMS?
Yeah, so specifically for I came up with some of the examples I've seen and specifically for the ITS market. So one of the ones that you can do is with the PTZ, as I said before, you want it pointed on what's going on. So if you have oftentimes on highways, you have a morning rush hour that goes one way and then an afternoon rush hour that goes the other way. So you can set the timing and the macros so that it'll automatically switch and focus it on those, as time. So from 7 a.m. to whatever, or anyway, you get the idea. The other, it would be if perhaps you could have a trigger in your cabinet, ITS cabinet, and if somebody were to open the door, the PTZ would immediately go to it and send an alert back to the head end saying, hey, here's a picture of a guy going into your or lady going into your ITS cabinet. What are they supposed to be there? So you would be alerted, and that macro would zoom in right on the ITS cabinet. The other can be hooked into some cameras or third-party analytics could trigger, say, a wrong way driver or stop vehicle. If that started happening, you have a macro that would go in and focus in on that vehicle or debris. Something could be a debris, a piece of something in the road or whatever. So the camera could actually let you know if it's actually there and what it looks like, and so you can send help. Those are pretty common ones as far as macros go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of automating the process and those if-then statements, so individuals don't have to be monitoring and controlling that PTZ to capture what it needs to capture. Pretty cool. Yeah, and then you also mentioned interoperability and compatibility with other systems. Do you see a lot of agencies deploying Sense strictly as a software solution with no hardware tied to it? Can it go into a system where there's other manufacturers that are involved and no TKH cameras? Does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We have some camera customers that are just running our software. Sometimes we don't always go into a new. Oftentimes there's a system there. So they may have already bought a system 10 or 5 years ago or something, and they just want to buy. We just sell them the software, and then later on they may buy our cameras and they may not. So yeah, we can be the one neck to choke, or you say one handshake, or we can play nice with others as well through OnViv or API or other interoperability, as you pointed out in your previous slide. As a part of the iceberg, we have 3,000 partners that we can work with, and we do on quite a bit of occasions. It's not, we do have systems that are completely TKH Siqura, and we have and just of one part of it and everywhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
And I can touch on the API part of it as well. So you can through the API, and that is an additional charge for the API, but you don't always need it. But if you were going to run a RTSP server or STMP server, some third-party analytics or other processes use that. And then we also create any of our sister companies. We have sister companies like Park Assist or Tatale, or these. If any of those were present in a system, the API would use to communicate with those third-party systems that we already pre-configure for your use if that became a part of your program.
Gotcha. Very cool. Kind of again touching on the interoperability, we worked with kind of an interesting project in Southwest Washington. We worked with WashDOT, Clark County, Washington, City of Vancouver to assist them in deploying a VMS that covered all three, which had its own challenges. But To kind of give everyone an idea, if they're not familiar, this area of Washington, we're right on the Oregon-Washington border here. We've got the Columbia River bisecting Washington and Oregon. We've got Portland right down here and the city of Vancouver right here. A lot of natural boundaries, a very kind of ecologically diverse area as well that presents some challenges too. But in terms of interagency collaboration, there were different IT policies between these agencies, different camera types, different camera manufacturers. But the nice thing that they did have was an interagency fiber network that was already in place. And the fact that these 3 jurisdictions, they owned and operated their own PTZ cameras on their own. But at the same time, they had poor, their response to traffic incidents wasn't as efficient as it could be. I mean, if you think of, if there's a stolen vehicle or an individual driving from a county road down here onto, the I-5 here, 205, or what is that, the State Road 14, these roads that are managed by the state, they cross onto that, then they drive into Vancouver and back onto a state road and then out. You've got a lot of phone calls and a lot of obstacles to get the live streams to a situation like that. Also as a roadway user, you just want to get to your destination. You don't really, you want to get there as safely as possible. You want to get there efficiently as possible. You're not really thinking about who's managing this road. They want to see consistency across the road, consistency in commute times, consistency in management. So these agencies identified there was a broad need for interagency cooperation, and they made the determination that sharing video between the agencies and allowing other agencies to receive live feeds of their PTZ videos would be a pretty good benefit. So the key to all this was selecting a good central camera system that allow them to share the video. Valuation was conducted, and they ended up going with TKH Sense primarily because of the flexibility, the interoperability, the ease of use across multiple platforms, across different specs, analog, digital, different manufacturers, able to connect all of those cameras into one system, so they could be accessed by any 3 of those in real time live. So again, the flexibility and cost effectiveness of this type of solution was the reason that they went with something like this. And to give you an idea of how they deployed, this is a snapshot of what the infrastructure looked like, the architecture. Again, the key was this, already having interagency fiber optic network. On the left, we've got WashDOT's assets, their server and their cameras. Their operations in the same building as State Police, so State Police had access to those servers. In addition to that, on the other side of the fence, you've got Clark County and City of Vancouver with their storage assets and their different types of cameras that are out in the field. And then able to log into this, you've got County Sheriff, you've got the Fire Department, and then you've got Vancouver City Operations. So really illustrating the broadness of Sense, the ease of interoperability, kind of that level, that the bottom level of that iceberg, really being key in this availability. Here's a quick snapshot of all the different cameras. This is the TMC of WashDOT, I believe. All the different cameras that they can quickly tap into, and each agency can see live feeds of other agencies' cameras in real time. So that really provided some consistency and a good sharing of assets across multiple agencies. And again, here's their image of their TMC with various cameras over certain directions, and then you can see the roads that they're monitoring, those state managed roads. So again, tying it all back to that iceberg, the interoperability being a real benefit to a lot of this piece of it. So with that, we thank everyone for their attention. We look forward to working with everybody. I've got a link down here. Of course, it's my contact information, John's contact information here, if anyone has any questions or want to follow up with us afterwards. As mentioned before, these webinars are being recorded and being put on our website. So if you go to westernsystems-inc.com and go to on the masthead, you go to resources and webinars, you can see all the webinars that we've been doing the last few weeks. Hopefully you can get something out of those, and then this one will be posted there too. So with that, thank you. Anything that you wanted to add, John? before we hand it over to Connor?
Yeah, one thing that I would suggest is if any of the product or whether the software or hardware was any interest, you can contact John or Westman Systems, your rep, and have them set up a demo for cameras or our software. We'd love you to try and see that what we say is great is truly great for your application. So we open that for you to try it out in a demo.
Very cool. All right, back to you, Connor.
All right, thanks, John. We'll get going on the Q&A process here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature within your GoToWebinar toolbar. And we did have a couple questions that came in throughout the presentation. So John, I'll send them your way. So the first one is, what is the warranty on the cameras?
The cameras have a 3-year warranty for the manufacturer, so we cover them for 3 years. That can be, if need be, extended to 5 years at a slightly additional charge, but they come with a 3-year warranty.
Great. And looks like the last one we got here is there a way to demo, or how would you go about demoing the software and cameras?
Well, with the software, we can actually go on our website and at TKHsecurity.com, you can go there and there's a path to actually downloading a very simple license, which would let you control up to 4 cameras. And it doesn't have any analytics or anything. So it's very simply a very kind of stripped down version. That you can use that. It's free. And there's no expiration. If you want to try something a little bit more like what you'd end up buying, you can request a license through Westman Systems, and we will give you a license that was good for about 60 days. We can extend that if need be, if there's a case scenario that requires it, but average, it comes out with 60 days. So you could do it that way. With the hardware, you would just let us know. You want to test a camera, we can let you test it for 30 to 90 days, put it up on a pole, try it, kick the tires, and then if you don't want to purchase it, you can return it for credit. We'll give you back we won't charge you for it. Or, I mean, we wouldn't even charge you for it in the first place. So if you want it, you can buy it. If not, just return it we won't charge you anything for it.
Yeah, and kind of touching on our previous story about the handoff between customer service. If anyone out there is interested in testing this, just reach out to us. We can do a lot of the heavy lifting to get it taken care of, both on the hardware and the software side, and bring in John's team when needed. But we are your hand to shake in the demo process.
Yeah, and we're available too, because in helping set up, and Western is our first line of defense, but we also, if you need help setting up a VMS to demo, we can always remote in and help you out and get things set up for you too. So we're here to support making sure that the demo, if you choose to spend your time, that you'll get the most out of it.
Great, thanks guys. That looks like all the questions we got today. So thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you for your time.